This is the last one of Heart Month. The question is, does our church have the heart of God? That should be our goal. That's what we want in our church. That's what we should be striving for. That's what we need to remember. I'm hoping today's sermon helps us focus on that. And as we go, I'll explain myself better. And so I handed out some cards, and I hope this goes well. Somebody already cheated. I'm not going to say. I don't point out cheaters. I told them not to look at side B, and the first thing they do is turn over to see side B. And it's just like kids. I should have said, whatever you do, make sure you immediately turn over and look, and they never would. I said, one guy who was telling me when I was doing that said he used to sleep through this class and cheated and got an A. And it reminded me of a story when we were in college. Now in college, some of us, in the old days, you could pay off your college debt. I did. When I graduated from college, that summer I had my college debt paid off. Back in the day, you could do that. But you had to work a lot of hours too and go to college. So, a lot of times people were catching up on sleep in certain classes. Well, one day, I forget, it was a psychology class. We were in a psychology class, and this guy had fallen asleep, and he'd fallen asleep several times in the class. So the teacher goes, shh, and we all gently left the room and shut the door. And then the bell rang, for us to go to the next class. He shoots up, and he's looking around. Everybody's gone. He didn't know what was going on. I'm sorry. That has nothing to do with anything, but it reminded me of that story. We have an important question that I have before us, and I'm going to ask people to show their cards here in a minute. The question is, if we had no blank, could we still have church? And I'm hoping by the end of this, we get an understanding of what I'm trying to say, and I hope I get my point across, and I only have really one point. Isn't that great? How often does a pastor tell you there's only going to be one point? By the way, I can preach 2 hours on one point, but... And so, Loretta, if we had no, and please stand up and show everyone, if we had no music, you can sit down now, thank you. I was going to have you guys read it, but then you'd look at side B. If we had no music, could we still have church? Yes. So then why is so much, don't get me wrong, I love music. I love worship. But why does it seem like so many churches put so much emphasis on music? Don't get me wrong. It's important. It's part of church. But if we could have church without it, is it really that important? Is it the thing that really matters? Pete, if we had no building, could we still have church? Can we still have church? Yes, we can. Don't get me wrong. I love our building. I do. I'm glad we have a building. I have had church in garages with lawn chairs. I like having pews and a building instead. I know of a church in the Philippines, not personally. I've seen pictures and heard people that meets in an old chicken coop, which doesn't hold everyone. If you don't get there soon enough, which people, by the way, race to get there soon enough so they could be inside the chicken coop. But if you get late, you have to stand outside and stand. Can you have a building, not have a building, and still have church? So it's not that important, is it? Don't get me wrong. I got to have a building. We want a building. But that's not the most important thing. So many churches, listen to me, so many churches worship their building. I remember it was in Chicago, and they have a building that's been built there since 1909. Not functional, no Sunday school classrooms, nothing for children's ministry at all. It's just an albatross if you want to try to build a church. And I had mentioned, maybe we should talk about building a new church building and then eventually tear this one down. I was almost ran out of church. Because that was their building. People fall in love with their building. People will say that's our church. But who hasn't heard about tornadoes coming through and wiping the building out? Does that mean they have no more church? To some people it does. That is the church. Those of us who knows what matters, yes, we can. I've seen them have church service over the rubble. And then afterwards, they're cleaning it up. That's the one church service you will see me in blue jeans and a t-shirt because I know we're going to go get to work, okay? So if we have no building, we can still have church. Judy, if we had no money, can we still have church? Don't get me wrong, church needs money. I remember one time I was preaching and I told people, and maybe I didn't get my point across very well, but I told people, we don't need your money. We don't. If we're doing what God wants us to do, God will provide for us. I'm not here to get your money. If you ever listen to me long enough, you'll know I don't talk a lot about money anyhow. There's pastors always constantly harping on offering and tithes. And when I was a kid, I heard that so many times. I'm fine with it. I got it. I don't think I need to be harping on it all the time. Turn me off. Maybe something from my past. And so I never want people to come through this building saying all that church wants is your money. Constantly talking about your money and about giving. And I don't want that. We'll take your money because we need it. But if we didn't have any money, could we still have church? Yes, we could. So it's not the thing that matters the most, is it? I have found, and it's true, if you're, as a church, following God's will and doing the best that you can to obey God's voice, magically things get taken care of. Bills get paid. Some of you can probably testify to that too, right here in this church. Things get taken care of. We don't need money. We'll take it, don't get me wrong. And so after I preached that, I said, we don't need your money. A little lady came to me, the treasurer, and shook my hand and said, don't tell people we don't need their money. Of course we need their money. So guess what I said the next Sunday? We don't need your money. I wanted to make the point across, we're not here for money. It's not what matters. Yours. Right there. Didn't I give you a card? Yes. If we had I put tech because it was too long to put technology. Thank you. Go ahead and put it down. He's proud of that. Technology. If we had no sound system, and some of you say, we don't have one now, but if we had no sound system, if we didn't have TV sets up, if we didn't have fancy lighting, just smartboard. I want a smartboard so bad. Smartboards are awesome, especially for children's ministry. Awesome smartboard. I want one. But if I didn't ever have a smartboard, and if I didn't have TV sets, and I didn't have a sound system, can I still have church? Yes. I can. So it's not that important, is it? It's not the things that matter. It's great to have those things. It makes church better, easier, all those things. But that's not the heart of a church, is it? What I want us to focus on as a church, and my job is to continually keep us focused on this. And your job as a membership is to keep my mind focused on this. Yes, someday I want to add on to our church building. By the way, it's not going to be tomorrow. I'm not going to put us in debt. I'm not stupid. But I want us to think about that and have that on. But churches that have building programs, that's what you'll hear from the pulpit constantly, won't you? We're adding on. We need this. We need that. They'll even tell stories about how that's not, and I hope I'm not like that. And if I get like that, get me back in focus. Because that's not what we want to focus on as a church. We want to focus on the things that really matter. The rest of it takes care of itself. The things that really matter. So what's the thing that really matters? The church, the heart of the church, needs to be the heart of God. As long as the heart is right, the rest will be taken care of. As long as we as a church desire and long for and exhibit and show the heart of God, God will continually bless us. And we'll have money. Maybe not a whole lot, but we'll have it. And we'll have a building. And we'll have pews. And we'll have technology. But we need to have the right heart. What I want us to do as a church is help change the hearts and minds of sinners and bring them to the salvation of God has provided for them. I want to be a church that's here to help those young Christians or older Christians who are in pain and struggling. And they know they can come here and get help. In spite of what building that we have, or what technology we have, or how advanced our music may be, they know they can go there. It's the heart that matters. And a church that has a heart of God. So let's kind of look at, and then I'll talk. What do we mean by the heart of God? By the way, I only have 4 points because I thought it was going to be a shorter message. And 2, I only have 4 points because I only gave out 4 cards. Doesn't that, there you go. So the heart of God is what, Loretta? That's side B. This time you can look at side B. You can look at it. Mercy. Mercy. Our God is a merciful God. There's a whole book of Psalm that says God's mercy endureth for what? Ever. When you talk about God, you cannot but stop and talk about His mercy and His grace, but His mercy. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that later. I want to go through. But God has the heart of mercy. And so, therefore, if we have a church that follows and desires and has the heart of God, we should have a church that has what? Mercy. Mercy over music. Mercy. Pete, the heart of God is? Faith. Faith. Again, we're going to talk a little more about it here in a minute. But faith. What was your A side?
Building.
Building. Faith over building. Sometimes you got to have faith to get a building. We had an old building in Chicago. That building took a lot of faith because it was tearing down and breaking down all the time. That heating system was horrible. It was old, years old. Faith over building. God's heart is one of faith. Believe it or not, God has faith in you. He does. Mike, what do you mean? He's told us before he left, when Jesus Christ left, he kept telling people he was the light of the world. Just before he left, what did he say was the light of the world now? Us. He says, you are the light of the world. He has a lot of faith in us. He told us to go and take the gospel to every living creature. That's a lot of faith in us, isn't it? As a church, if we're going to have the heart of God, we got to have faith. A church that moves forward in faith. By the way, faith is not the absence of fear. I know everybody teaches that. It's not true. It's not the absence of fear. It's not true. Mike, what do you mean? Because I've heard that all the time. If I'm not afraid, I don't need God, do I? If I believe I'm strong enough to handle this, I can take care of this, where do I need faith? It's when I am afraid, when I know I can't do it, when I know I'm not strong enough, then I need what? Faith. It's not the absence of fear. It's doing what's right in spite of your fear. It's going forward with God in spite of my fears, in spite of my doubts, in spite of me. That's faith. And as a church, we must have faith in one another. We got to have faith in God to move forward, and we have to have faith in others. Faith. The heart of God is faith. Judy, I think it's your turn. What is side B? Love. I meant to have that one last. I messed it up. Love. The heart of God is love. Matter of fact, so much so, the Bible tells us that God is what? Love. Wherever you see love, like the love of a mother to a child, you'll see God. Whenever you see love, true, pure, honest love, you'll see God. The love that a mother has for a child is unconditional, isn't it? What a great example of how God loves us. See, that's what I mean. Wherever you find love, true love, you will find God. God is love, and his very heart is love. Love. Love covers a multitude of sins. Love is something that everyone should feel when they come in this building. What a church that is. They may not have very good music. They may not have all the tech. They may not have a very good building. Maybe this or that. They don't have money. But wow, the love. Wow, the mercy. Wow, the faith that church has. Your turn. Justice. Justice. The heart of God is justice. That means being fair, honest, doing what's right, righteous. And that is something our heart should be as a church. If we desire the heart of God, a church that is after the heart of God, we should be fair, we should be honest, we should do what's right and expect others to be the same way. And that is the heart of God. These four things that I brought to you, and there's some more that God is, but these four things for sure, if we are a church after the heart of God, we will show that. And we will make it important for us to maintain that. Again, as the job of the pastor is to keep us focused on the heart of God. And we should say as a church, those other things don't matter as much as the heart of God. As the heart of God. Let's go over these 4 points, and then I'll be done. Told you it'd be shorter. I told him Wednesday night, by the way, do you know when to tell when a preacher is lying? When he says, I got one more thing. He's lying. Mercy, it says in Matthew 9:13, but go ye and learn what that meaneth. I will have mercy and not sacrifice. For I am not come to call the righteous, but the sinners to repentance. He says, I will have mercy over sacrifice. What had happened is Jesus was sitting down with publicans, that's tax collectors, by the way, and James knows this sermon that I have about tax collectors, and we'll have it someday soon. But tax collectors and sinners, Jesus was sitting down with them. And of course, the people who were religious, and I hate saying it this way, religious said, why is he sitting with sinners and tax collectors? Why? Because he says, I'm a God of mercy. You don't think I don't know what these people have done? You don't think that I don't know that they're sinners? And a church after the heart of God is looking for the sinner to come through those doors and sit with us and learn of God and have mercy. Sometimes we'll know exactly who they are and what they've done. But a heart of mercy says, I want them to come sit with me. I had a guy one time tell me when I was preaching on love after the church service, a lot of things happen after the church service. He came up to me and he said, but I don't want my son sitting next to a prostitute or a drug addict. He thought church was just for saved people. I said, go study and show me where that says that. Study and show me where it says church is just for saved people. Came back, he says, I can't find it, but that's what I always thought. I told him I want everyone, anyone. People get real fancy and they learn all these fancy things. And one of the things you go to preacher meetings is you learn demographics. And certain pastors or certain churches want a certain demographic in their church. And people ask me, well, what's your demographic? What's your target? Who are you looking for? They stop asking me at church meetings after a while, pastor meetings, because mine is very simple. Everyone that Jesus Christ died for. Who would that include? All of us. I'm after everyone. The sinner. The worst sinner in the world. And the whole people in Nashville know it. Trust me, it's happened before. People have read stories. You've read stories. Drunkards. People that were fighters. People that were murderers. Did not Jesus Christ get a hold of that person's heart and save them and change them? Why wouldn't I want to be a part of that? A church of mercy. I know what you did. I know it. We all know the stories. Come on in. Come on in. Justice. Matthew 23:23. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you pay tithe of mint and anise and cumin, and have omitted the weightier matter, the most important matter. He's saying, you pay your tithes. You do what you're supposed to. You're at church, but you forgot the important matter of the law, judgment, justice. Justice. Doing what's right, being fair and honest with people, and expecting others to do the same. Justice. Mercy, we just talked about, and faith. He said, you go through your ceremonies. You do what you're supposed to do. Read Isaiah 29, verse 13, when you get a chance. I'm not going to be able to get there. 29:13 talks about how God says, Israel, you honor me with your lips and your mouth. And you go through the services and you do what you're supposed to do, but your heart is far from me. So you don't have the heart of God. And Jesus said, I'll have mercy over sacrifice. He said, I'll have mercy over ceremony. I'll have mercy over organization. I'll have mercy over anything ceremonial or church related. I'll have mercy first. and I'll have justice and faith. Faith. Faith in God that He's going to take and move us forward. Faith in others, and I talked about that earlier. And that's what matters. And then love. John 13:35. By this shall all men know that you are my disciples, if you have love for what? One another. Listen, there will be people that come through those doors, and they may say, wow, their music is not that great. It's not a very big building. We could go, they don't have any tech stuff. I mean, they don't have a smart board. I really want one. They don't have a smart board. But how they love each other. Wow. I'm going to tell you, we'll get more people to come to our church over how we love each other than all that other stuff. Because people want to be a part of that. And people will know those are genuine Christians. How do you know they're genuine Christians? Jesus said, if you're truly my disciple, by the way, someday we'll have a lesson on the difference between being a Christian and a disciple. Not all Christians are disciples. Wow, I just confused you, didn't I? Not all Christians are disciples. But if people will know you're a disciple of Christ, you are a disciple of Jesus, you are, like me, how you love one another, how you treat one another. And that's what I want us to focus on as a church. Yeah, I'll talk about building on, I'll talk about technology, I'll talk about these things, but I don't ever want that to be my only focus. And I don't want that to be the focus of our church. Not what we have. I want to focus on, or what we don't have. I want us to focus on having the heart of God. One of the things that brought me here, and I'm almost done. Again, I'm lying, but I'm almost done. The reason I wanted to stay here when I first started preaching, you can ask my wife, who's not here. You'll have to ask her later. That very first service, I left and I said, wow, the heart of those people. The heart-wise, there's nothing that has to be changed. There's no bitterness. There's no anger. There's no hatred. I wanted to be a part of this. I want us to keep that focus. As we move forward and start doing things and start improving and start growing, it's easy to lose that focus. I never want us to lose that focus. The question today is, does our church have the heart of God? Do we? The question for you personally, do you have the heart of God? Do you have the heart of God? Let us close in prayer.